course, Mark, I mean, of course, you have built multi-million-dollar businesses, and I think that was a different era, right? Maybe 15 years back or 10 years back. And since the market rapidly changes, and now you are, of course, consulting a couple of CPG startups. So what are those, let's say, maybe if you want to highlight 2 or 3 major factors in the time when you had built a brand versus since now you're looking at the growing brands, what are those major differences that you are experiencing around the brand strategy?
Well, I'd say, today what I see happening more often, I mean, this wasn't big when we were building a business, but I think, social media is probably the biggest aspect of it. It seems that things are moving a lot quicker, that brands are engaging with consumers, getting their input. They're taking input and they're incorporating it into their strategy. If somebody has a problem or a comment, they have to respond immediately. And they're just, the engagement with the consumer is just happening at a lightning fast speed. It wasn't like the old days when we would get a letter that come in and complained, and I'd have to send a couple of coupons out and a personal letter explaining, apologizing for what happened or explaining something. Things happen very quickly today. And so it's important, I think, for companies to think about that and to set up the structure of their company so that they have the right people and the right resources immediately responding to the consumer.
Hi, Mark. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Wow. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Awesome. How is everyone at home?
Everything is great. Everything is great. The weather in Seattle is typical this time of the year, a little cold and overcast and rainy, but you get what you expect.
Awesome. Great. So viewers, good morning to you. Today we have with us Mr. Mark Phelps from the United States. Welcome to the new episode of Sustainable Future Food Talk. So I'll quickly introduce all of you to Mark, and then we can accordingly take the session forward. So Mark completed his BA in Communication in 1982, MBA in 1993, and then a General Management course from Harvard in 2010. Mark is a transformative and a committed business leader with more than 25 years of experience in the CPG industry. He has an expertise across various domains, including sales development, strategic marketing, budget forecasting, and a few more. After working with Quaker Oats and a few more organizations, Mark co-founded Innovation, which was a discarded company, and scaled it to more than $150 million of revenue. After retiring from the regular trade, Mark has been now coaching a few CPG brands through Stanford. So Mark, really appreciate your time having on this session. Awesome. So of course, I mean, you have a core expertise in brand strategy. So while building a brand strategy, I mean, your decision to revitalize a brand should be based on a thorough brand health check or evaluation, which includes reviewing what's going wrong, what should be improved, and so forth. So, I mean, to ensure an implementation of a great rebranding strategy to achieve the desired results. So what is your take based on your, I mean, extensive experience?
Well, thank you, Dewal. Again, I've been out of the game for a little bit of time, but I put on my, opened up the memory, and it's a great question. And, brand is something that is near and dear to my heart. I mean, it's a living, breathing instrument. It needs to be tied to what your company's purpose is, and the purpose needs to fulfill a need in the consumer's mind. And so, it's evolving all the time. When I was at Innovation, it was about 20 years. I think we did a major rebranding about every 5 years. And that's probably a typically good time to do that. It could be more often, more frequently. But you need to look at the environment around you. I mean, things are always changing. You know,
Right.
nutritional needs are changing. USDA and regulatory agencies are changing things, so those might be small changes. But you know, there are many areas that you can look at. You know, the color of your packaging, the design of your packaging, you know, just keeping top of mind as to what, you know, what are the most important things that you want to communicate. And so those things need to constantly be looked at. You can benchmark your competition. You can look at a lot of different areas. But essentially, you know, you want to, I'd say if there's one thing to do is that you want to simplify the message. You want to keep things as simple as possible. Consumers' lives are very complicated. When they walk down the aisle, and don't want to get further ahead, but they have very little time to make a decision on whether they should purchase your product or not. So being real clear on what your product delivers and is going to help the consumer make that decision and bring them into your brand franchise.
Sure. Awesome. Coming down to my next question. So, I mean, since of course, market research and having insights is extremely important. So if you can throw some light on what tools are available for market research, insights, thorough planning to identify the needs or desires of the target audience and maybe to restructure the brand to deliver.
Okay. Well, that is a good question. And again, I'll defer to my target audience here, which I assume is smaller companies that don't have big budgets. You know, when you have a lot of money, you can pretty much do anything you want to do. But, you know, certainly there's the internet to look and do competitive profiles of what's going on. I myself, for 20 years, used to spend a lot of time in supermarkets. I would walk the aisles and look at different brands, what they're doing in colors and designs. We were talking earlier about trade shows. I think trade shows are an excellent example to walk and just see, you know, what is new, what's relevant, what's fresh. And you can hire companies. You know, back at Innovation, we hired the Nielsen company to do some research, you know, on different package designs, and it monitored the eye movement of the consumer to determine what elements of the package you looked at first versus second versus third. So you can get very scientific about it. But I'd say, again, it's really an art and a science. That is combined to give you the best results, and it's just being aware of, again, of what your message you're trying to communicate and what elements are going to communicate that the best. Right.
Awesome. I have a question here around, I mean, the era, because Mark, I mean, of course, you have built multi-million-dollar businesses, and I think that was a different era, right? Maybe 15 years back or 10 years back. And since the market rapidly changes, and now you are of course consulting a couple of CPG startups. So what are those, let's say, maybe if you want to highlight 2 or 3 major factors in the time when you had built a brand versus since now you're looking at the growing brands, what are those major differences that you are experiencing around the brand strategy?
Well, I'd say, you know, today what I see happening more often, I mean, this wasn't big when we were building a business, but I think, you know, social media is probably the biggest aspect of it. It seems that things are moving a lot quicker, that brands are engaging with consumers, getting their input. They're taking input and they're incorporating it into their strategy. If somebody has a problem or a comment, they have to respond immediately. And they're just, you know, the engagement with the consumer is just happening at a lightning fast speed. It wasn't like the old days when we would get a letter that come in and complained, and, you know, I'd have to send a couple of coupons out and a personal letter explaining, you know, apologizing for what happened or
Right.
explaining something. Things happen very quickly today. And so it's important, I think, for companies to think about that and to set up the structure of their company so that they have the right people and the right resources immediately responding to the consumer.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Great. So coming down to my next question, what is the importance of building a community-oriented brand, and how can such outreach build a strong and engaging brand image?
I think, I mean, not to be repetitive, but I think it's very important. I mean, I think that depending on how you engage with your consumers, you can get some great insights as to what their needs are and what their thinking is and what their behavior is. And you can tailor your messages to the consumer. You know, I have 3 children that are millennials. They're in their late 20s, 27, 28, 29. But what I've come to find out is they don't trust big brands anymore. You know, they feel that, you know, people are investing millions of dollars in trying to brainwash them. And the better approach is more of a here's a message of an unfounded idea, a story of a company that they refer to their friends. It's kind of there's like a community that's being built in a groundswelling around what a company has to offer. And it's more inviting. It's less, it feels more comfortable to them. And so kind of taking the approach that it's through a third party to get that message really seems to be influencing them more than a direct approach, trying to, you know, market to them in the old-fashioned way, I guess I should say.
Right. Awesome. Now I have a personal question for you. I mean, of course, after retirement, you have been coaching a couple of CPG brands out of passion and your enthusiasm for the CPG industry. What other goals do you have in terms of maybe personal capacity, or what do you want to achieve going forward?
Well, you know, we've talked about these, Dewal. You know, one of the things that's been lacking in my life is my physical shape. You know, I haven't been as active as I was in the younger years, and I am committed. I used to do yoga back in the early years. That come the first of the year, call it a New Year's resolution, if you will, but is to retake up my yoga practice and possibly increase my flexibility and strength and mindset. And that's probably the last horizon for me. I don't know how other retirees think, but that's been pushed down on the priority list and is certainly a major goal for me for next year.
Interesting. And I mean, all the best for you.
Thank you.
Coming down to my next question. So, I mean, research has found that 70% of the customer purchasing decisions are made at the shelf. And I mean, 90% of those on-the-spot decisions are made simply by looking at the face of the product in, let's say, less than 90 seconds or so. So what advice do you have for the growing brands entering new territory?
Well, you know, the advice would be to keep it simple and straightforward. I mean, Innovation was a brand that we marketed premium Asian takeout foods in the supermarket. So our focus was beautiful photography, you know, to have the dishes look amazing. And that was, you know, front and center, in your face, appetizing, appealing to kind of hit the cravings of the consumer. You know, we also did a color-coded background, which over time people got to recognize immediately on the shelf that purple was one flavor, red was a different flavor. You know, and in packaging today, everything can look the same. So creating a little differentiating among the similarity helps, but less is better. if you can communicate that message as simple as possible, and what are the most important points that the consumer is going to respond to, that would be, my advice is, something that's very crowded and takes a lot of time to read, is you're going to lose that consumer. They're going to keep walking down that aisle. And something as simple as, you've got great marketers that win awards in developing packaging, but are you taking the time? We were a frozen product, to actually take some mock-up packages and go into the supermarket freezer and put them in the door and walk down the aisle and see what it looks like, based on the lighting, and does it really pop, and does it attract your eye? And so you have to, also do a real life test example as well too, would be a recommendation.
Lovely. So Mark, of course, these days it's not restricted to just consumer satisfaction, but these days brands talk more about consumer delight and how much maximum can they offer the consumer with whatever they are charging. So around that, what are some ways, let's say, a brand can go an extra mile and over deliver on the brand promise? So your views on that?
Yeah, I guess for us, it was all about the quality of the product. We were in a category where the Asian food quality was inconsistent. And so consumers didn't trust that the quality was great. So from day one, we had I call kind of like a Nordstrom policy. You could, for any reason, if you're unhappy with the product, you can give them a money back. We gave them a money back guarantee.
Sure.
And if they wrote in or communicated they were dissatisfied, we gave them 100% of their money back. And on top of that, we gave them a coupon for a significant discount on their next purchase, because they may have tried a flavor that they didn't like, but there might be another flavor in the varieties. But the overall theme would be, put your money where your mouth is. If you truly believe in your product and you have the best product out there, you need to give them a guarantee and assure them and build the trust that their experience is going to be a good experience.
Right. And I'm sure, this will really help the brand to sustain and grow for long term, right? That's how at the end of the day, you want it from the consumer.
Absolutely. It's a long-term game. It's, being retired now 3 years, my old company just is approaching 250 million in revenue. And, I wish the best for them. And I think they're going to be around 50 or 100 years from now. And it gives me great pride to see continued growth and development. And this is a long-term game. If you're in it for the short term, you're in the wrong business. It's you got to be building something for a lifetime. That's the way to look at it.
Right. Awesome. So coming down to my last question for this session, how is your brand story currently incorporated into your consumer touch points and overall brand presentation? Is there a way to enhance the brand story?
Yeah, I would say we did something towards the end of my time in place. We hired an ad agency, and some of the particulars around Asian cuisine is that you're competing for share of stomach. The consumer can buy a pizza or chicken or something else. So how do you get them to think about, purchasing Asian cuisine more frequently? So, we came up with the idea of the innovation occasion. And today the advertising is expanded even more. It's, they've got, two kids fighting and competing, and they call it the sibling persuasion as an innovation occasion, or, a remodeling innovation is an innovation occasion. So it's taking, real life examples of things happening and having a catchy theme that's an innovation conversion. And essentially you're communicating to the consumer and reminding them, keeping them top of mind that Asian is something you can happen more often than a traditional Friday night together as a family. So the strategies worked very well according to the folks in place. And, again, just thinking about how to influence the brand, how do you get them to consume it more often, more of it, and thinking through those dynamics.
Right. Great. So, really incredible inputs from your side. Thank you so much once again for that. So on a closing note, if you were to give maybe 2 quick tips to the emerging CPG brands entering the US market, what would they be?
I'd say be outrageous. Don't play it safe. Come up with an idea and a thought and just set yourself apart from your competition. One of our biggest customers over time was Walmart. It's the biggest retailer in the world, and it's amazing how they look to partner with small emerging companies who has something unique and something different. And don't be afraid to promote your uniqueness and your point of difference. And that's what's going to cut through. That message will cut through all the clutter that's out there and bring the consumer to you. And I wish you the best in your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, once again for your time. This has been a very early morning for you, but really appreciate it once again. Thank you so much.
My pleasure to all. Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Okay.